Hello class, welcome to Chapter 3, Making Ethical Decisions. Before I continue, I want to reinforce the need to read the written lecture. In these video lecturettes I make for you, I cover the basic outlines, the major topics of discussion. But it's up to you to also read the written lecture. These video lecturettes are designed to supplement those written lectures. So again, this is Chapter 3, Making Ethical Decisions. Chapter Objectives. Become familiar with major theories regarding the development of moral behavior. Become familiar with Gilligan's research exploring gender differences in moral development. Recognize the difficulty associated with the relationship between moral beliefs and behavior. Become familiar with some of the applications of moral development theory to criminal offenders. Become familiar with some issues regarding teaching ethics in criminal justice. Understand the range of answers to the question, why be ethical? Before continuing, I want to tell you a little story. And again, it's to get you to start thinking. At work, at Bluegrass Station, people know that I believe in the Bible. On one particular day, I was called out to fix a computer for a person who was having difficulty operating it. So I go out and fix it. It wasn't a major issue. It was an easy fix. But in the process of fixing it, this person engaged in conversation with me. In that conversation, the person spoke crudely, used curse words in the vernacular. And then she stopped herself suddenly, and she says, oh, I forgot you go to church, and you don't talk like this, and oh, I feel so bad. I want you to think about, as we're going through Chapter 3, I want you to think about how this story fits in with Chapter 3 and what we were discussing. Theories of moral development. Who has been the greatest influence on your moral development? Why? How? Why do you think people behave in ways that hurt other people? Have you ever done something you knew to be wrong? Why did you do it? 3 explanations will be offered for how people develop personal moral systems. The first one is biological, the second one is learning, and the third one is developmental. Biological theories. There are links between the brain and the predisposition to certain behaviors. The frontal lobes seem to be the part of the brain implicated in feelings of empathy, shame, and moral reasoning. There may also be sex differences in brain activity, and research offers evidence that women are biologically inclined to empathy and sensitivity to human relationships. Criminality seems to be associated with low serotonin levels and impulsivity. Serotonin. Have you ever heard of an SSRI? An SSRI is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. What that does is it's a reuptake inhibitor. In the brain, excess amounts of serotonin are reabsorbed into the body. Okay, serotonin prevents this reabsorption of serotonin. The end result is you get more serotonin to your brain. Serotonin makes you feel good. So again, criminality seems to be associated with low serotonin levels and impulsivity. Sociobiology argues that certain traits are the result of natural selection because of their value in survival of the species. Wilson says traits helpful to survival include sympathy, fairness, self-control, and duty. Shermer says group selection process for the species seems to be that morality lies in both the rational parts of the brain, the prefrontal lobes, and the emotional centers, the amygdala. Learning theory. Learning theorists believe that children learn what they are taught, including morals and values, as well as behavior. In modeling, values and moral beliefs are patterned after those one admires and aspires to identify with. I had a coach a basketball coach in high school who had a saying, and he repeated it several times, and I've always remembered it. And this goes along with modeling. And he said, "You become what the most important person in your life thinks that you will become." And if you think about it, there's a certain sense to that, but I've never forgotten it. In reinforcement, behaviors and beliefs that are reinforced, either through material rewards or through more subjective rewards, such as praise, are repeated and eventually become permanent. In cognitive dissonance, the discomfort that results when behavior is not consistent with beliefs. This leads to the development of attitudes to support one's behavior. Learning theory continued. Bandura says successful socialization requires gradual substitution of symbolic and internal controls for external sanctions and demands. The actor is an active participant, hence the concept of self-efficacy. Selective disengagement is when modeling and learning do not create moral behavior. Moral justification, an appeal to a higher or more important end to justify the act. Euphemistic labeling, using words to downplay the seriousness of actions so that the true moral nature of such actions is ignored. Advantageous comparison, an argument that the action may be wrong, but is not as bad as other possible actions. Displacement of responsibility. This argument removes the individual as a free-thinking agent in order to deny culpability. Diffusion of responsibility. Redefinition of an individual's responsibility by diffusing it among a number of people. Disregard or distortion of the consequences. Misidentifying the consequences of one's actions and thus denying one's responsibility for harm. Dehumanization. The process of stripping the victim of any qualities that might evoke sympathy. Developmental theories. Developmental theories propose that individuals mature physically, cognitively, and emotionally. Social maturity is marked by the ability to empathize with others and a willingness to compromise one's desires with others' needs. Kohlberg's moral stages are a description of characteristics of stages. They involve qualitative differences in modes of thinking as opposed to quantitative differences. Each stage forms a structured whole. Cognitive development and moral growth are integrated. Stages form an invariant sequence. No one bypasses any stage, and not all people develop to the higher stages. Stages are hierarchical integrations. Kohlberg's moral stages: pre-conventional level, conventional level, post-conventional level, and a possible seventh stage, which I will explain shortly. In the pre-conventional level, the person approaches a moral issue motivated purely by personal interests. There are two stages in the pre-conventional level. Stage 1 has a punishment and obedience orientation. What is right is that which is praised. What is wrong is that which is punished. Stage 2 has an instrument and relativity orientation. The child becomes aware of and is concerned with others' needs. What is right is still determined by self-interest, but the concept of self-interest is broadened to include those who are within the child's sphere of relationships. In the conventional level, people perceive themselves as members of society, and living up to the role responsibilities is paramount in believing oneself to be good. This level has two stages. Stage 3 has an interpersonal concordance orientation. The views of significant others are important to one's self-concept. Stage 4 has a law and order orientation. The individual is concerned with the rules set down by society. The post-conventional level has two stages. The post-conventional level, a person moves beyond the norms and laws of a society to determine universal good. That is, what is good for all societies. Few people reach this level, and their actions are observably different from the majority. Stage 5 has a social contract orientation. The person recognizes larger interests than current laws. Stage 6 centers on universal ethical principles. The person who has reached this stage bases moral judgments on the higher abstract laws of truth, justice, and morality. A seventh stage? Kohlberg advanced the possibility of a seventh stage, which has been described as a soft stage of ethical awareness with an orientation of cosmic or religious thinking. This stage focuses on agape, a non-exclusive love and acceptance of the cosmos and one's place in it. Now we move on to another topic: teaching ethics. Transparency International is an organization that compiles evidence of corruption from across the world and rates countries on how much corruption exists. United States, 2003, 16th. 2007, 20th. More perceived corruption than countries such as Finland, Denmark, New Zealand, Iceland, Singapore, Sweden, Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom. Why do you think the United States doesn't rank higher on the Transparency International Integrity Survey? Are our morals declining? The reasons given for ethics decline include the following. We have eliminated many of the opportunities for the teaching of morals. Have we? I think we probably have. The community is not a cohesive force any longer. The authority of religion is not as pervasive as it once was. The family is weakening as a force of socialization. Educators have abdicated their responsibility for moral instruction in favor of scientific neutrality. Administrators and managers exert the strongest influence on the ethical climate of an agency. regardless of whether ethics classes are offered. So why be ethical? When faced with a choice of behavior, one should at least perform the following steps. Examine all possible solutions to the problem and be aware of the direct and indirect effects of each response. One should determine whether any solutions would be viewed as unacceptable if made public, and for what reason. Reconcile their decisions with their personal set of values or ethical system. Why be good? Under ethical formalism, the answer is that the world works better, and it is rational to do